Our first panel this afternoon is made up of individuals from the Department of Mineral Resources. The first being David Tabor, Senior Field Operations Manager for the department. Next is Todd Holweger, Senior Permit Manager and Seismic Program Manager. And finally, Mark Bohrer, Assistant Director of the DMR. This group will be moderated by Nathan Anderson, our new Director of the North Dakota Department of Mineral Resources. Please help me welcome these gentlemen.
All right, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? I don't know when I'm going to be not the new director. But yesterday was my 1-year work anniversary here at the DMR, so I've made it 1 year. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us today, Ron and members of the NDPC. A couple quick things before we get started. I'm going to do a quick year in review, 6-7 minutes, and then I'm going to bring the panel members up. But Kathy Nessett, thank you for teeing it up earlier. I'm going to say it again because I think it's that important, and I'm going to say it in front of a larger crowd. It's an honor and privilege to lead in this industry, and it's not something that I take for granted. So thank you to this industry and the team at the DMR for allowing me to walk alongside all of you and lead North Dakota's energy future forward. Thank you for that. Then lastly, before I start, yesterday, like I mentioned, was my 1-year anniversary in my new role. And not one person last year when I was here came up and told me how busy this job is. I've had an incredibly busy year. It's been very rewarding, very fun, very much a learning curve that I've had to work up. Lynn Helms didn't tell me, Ron Ness didn't tell me, none of my friends that are in the crowd, but met some countless hardworking, fantastic people in the industry. Really been an honor and a privilege. Thank you for allowing me to lead alongside you. Is this the clicker? All right, this is my leadership statement, and I think I showed this last year. I'm not going to read all of it, but I think it's important that you all know that I have something that guides me every day, other than my faith, and that's my leadership statement and how I want to lead and be a better leader for my employees. I strive to do these type of things every day with the team. And I believe in them wholeheartedly, and I won't read that. I just thought it was important enough to share that with everybody. And about a year ago, I went around to every single employee in the DMR. I had been in my role for just a few days, and took the time to go to each of the field offices, and those are those pictures that you see up there on the right. Mine at Williston, Dickinson. It took me a little while to get to Grand Forks, but ultimately I did get up there. I made a commitment to my team members during those first few days, and that's what you see up on the screen right now, and I'll read through just a few of those. I committed to make the transition from Dr. Helms to myself as smooth as possible, meet everyone on the team as quick as possible, effectively learn my role, engage with the employees, listen effectively, be the genuine me every single day, seek advice from the team, encourage and drive teaming continuously, ask lots of questions, and those that have been around me this year know that I've certainly asked many, many questions. I will not micromanage, work very hard to communicate effectively, and work to create stronger leaders within the agency. Recently, I'm proud to report that recently I revisited this commitment with many people on the team, specifically the leadership group, which is about 15 different managers, supervisors, and leaders within the agency. And we've evaluated room or areas of improvement. There's certainly things that I did well over that year, but there's things that I can improve upon, and we've identified those, and we'll work hard to continue to improve upon those. A little about the busy year. We had a legislative session. I'd been in my role about 3 months. Never did anything really with the legislature. Thank you to those members of the legislature that are here for treating me kindly in my first year at the legislature. There were some great things that happened during that time. We got our, first and foremost, we got our budget approved for the next 2 years. There was tax incentives, non-Bakken drilling tax incentive was improved, and the development incentive well tax incentive was also put into play. And I just want to make sure that those companies that are able to utilize the development incentive well tax incentive know that there's a button on our website that's available. If you go on there, click that. That'll tell you what you need to do in order to apply for that non-Bakken tax incentive. And I will say that we've not received one yet, so we're waiting on our first application in order to kind of test out our process as well. So other things, we developed critical minerals language with the legislature, and we successfully, after 20 years, this is from Ed Murphy, named the Knife River Flint as the state rock of North Dakota. I did a lot of traveling, building industry relationships, operator and midstream meetings, as well as relationships with other state and federal agencies, and to name a few, and probably not all of them, the DWR, DEQ, BND, OMB, North Dakota Tax, the Game and Fish Department, HRMS, the Governor's Office, the AG's Office, and the Ag Commissioner's Office, the BLM, and Forest Service as well. I've had an opportunity to present to a wide variety of audiences, probably 20 or 25 different times throughout the year. A couple of those are certainly the legislature, North Dakota Petroleum Council Teacher Seminar, Dickinson State of the City. I saw the mayor of Dickinson here. I haven't got a chance to shake your hand if you're in the room, but I will. NARO, Western Dakota Energy Association, Mazda, which is a Midwest Association of State Department of Agriculture. Commissioner Goring chaired that this year. Northwest Landowners Association, Oil and Gas Companies, API chapters, Basin Electric, and several more. The picture in the upper left is participation in the meeting that Ron and others have spoke about, which was Secretary Wright came to town, hosted by Senator Hoeven. That was a great event, talking about Bakken 2.0, Crack the Code 2.0. Governor Armstrong has coordinated tribal visits. The first one that I attended was the Sisseton, Wahpeton, Oyate tribal visit, and many other visits throughout the year. The picture in the upper middle is Beth Eiley, John Hild with the Medora Grazing Association, Beth with U.S. Forest Service, Beth, if you're out there. Mark Bohrer, the Assistant Director, Ag Commissioner Goring, and myself, and that's a well that is in the process of being converted from a oil and gas well to a water well for beneficial reuse for cattle and other grazing operations. So it's been a very busy year. It's been a great year for me to learn and grow. One of the things that I really am passionate about is organizational, personal, and interpersonal development within organizations. I love working with and building great teams. A couple of the things that I'll highlight that we worked on from an organizational development standpoint this year. We worked on the organizational chart of the agency and aligned accountability with the proper supervisors within the agency, so we have a slightly different looking organizational chart. Structurally, nobody in the room would notice much of a difference, but we did do that. We created a menu for success. So the menu for success to me is what you see on the screen there, and that's actually the exact menu for success that I created for 2025-26. And this is really a set of high-level goals that if we accomplish those as a team, it kind of lends me to believe we've had a very successful year, but it also, more importantly, allows employees to align their goals through the individual performance process, which we also created this year, with the highest level goals within the agency, and that's what you see there. I'll read just a few. Prioritize our safety culture. It was a strong safety culture, but we want to continue to improve upon that. Foster innovation and technology. I've heard that several times today, and we certainly can do that from the DMR standpoint. Prioritize IT. We have some work to do with our North Star project, and that will be a priority this year. Going forward, we hope to finish that before the next legislative session. Rolling down the page just a little bit, successfully complete our oil and gas division rulemaking, which we're in the process of doing. Establish critical minerals rulemaking. Establish and implement the development incentive well program, which I believe we've accomplished. And then build organizational trust, which is critically important to strong teams. Kind of the picture in the upper left-hand corner is Ed Murphy, and that was my honor to present with him his 45 years of service at the North Dakota Geological Survey. Just to the right of that is our community days. We've participated in 2 of those this year. One was Project Hope, and the other was our United Way Day of Caring. And the other thing that's been important, and I spoke to legislature about, was succession planning within the agency. We have key retirements that are occurring over the next few years, and I think it's important to kind of build up that bench strength within the agency, and we're in the process of doing that. And so real quick, I want to thank, before we get to the panel, I want to thank a few members of my team, my direct reports, Michael Zeisch, Ed Murphy, Robin Loomer, and Kayla Lemieux. I need to thank them for all of the work they do. They've did a lot of heavy lifting this year while I've worked my way up the learning curve. I'll be around throughout the day. I got to leave tonight, but if you have a chance to visit, I'd love to visit with you. And then real quick, we're trying to build up our LinkedIn followers on our LinkedIn page. So go to the take out your phones, go to the Department of Mineral Resources tab and hit follow. We'd appreciate that. We're going to improve our communications through that platform. Now I'd like to welcome members of the panel to the stage. Today we have 3 senior leaders within the Oil and Gas Division of the DMR to provide meaningful insight on frequently asked questions. Please welcome Mark Bohrer, Assistant Director of the Oil and Gas Division, David Tabor, our Senior Field Operations Manager, and our Senior Permit Manager and Seismic Program Manager, Todd Holweger. I think I can leave you. Did this mic pick up now, I think? All right, Mark, tell me a little about yourself, your time at the DMR, and the various roles that you've held, and how many employees are under your leadership.
Well, I started in 1987 as a field inspector in Williston. I was there for a couple of years, and then I moved to Dickinson, was a field inspector in Dickinson for a couple of years. I then moved to Bismarck for a new UIC position that was created. And I was in that position until roughly 2000. And then 2000, I became the UIC and treating plant manager. And then a couple of years ago, I became the assistant director. So I'm starting my 39th year with the Oil and Gas Division.
Did you say how many employees are under your leadership?
There's 74 in the Oil and Gas Division in nine different areas. We have field operations, permitting, seismic, pipeline, production accounting, geology, hearings and orders, UIC, and engineering department.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. David, tell us a little about yourself, your time at the DMR, and the various roles you've held, and how many people are under your leadership.
I've been with the department for about 16 years now. Actually started under Mr. Holweger as a permitting technician, moved into the production and gas measurement supervisor position when that department was created and helped establish that, and then moved into my current role as the field operations manager. And I oversee 3 district offices, one in Minot, one in Dickinson, and one in Williston. And we have between 12 and 13 inspectors in each office, and that includes our reclamation staff, pipeline staff, and our oil and gas metering staff.
All right, thanks, David. Todd, on to you. Same questions. Tell us a little about yourself and your time here, what you do, and how many people are under your leadership.
Absolutely. So I've been with the state for 29 years. I started in 1996 out of Dickinson. I was a field inspector, primarily in Bowman County. It was a lot of fun. Worked for 10 years in Dickinson, and then moved to Bismarck in 2006 as a UIC supervisor, and quickly moved into permit manager and geophysical supervisor. and I've been doing that for 19 years. And then recently been given the position of senior permit manager and seismic manager. And the people that I supervise, I have a great team. I've got 3 permitting technicians, 1 permitting engineer. I've got a directional drilling engineering technician, and then I've got a field seismic a seismic inspector. And in those roles, I mean, our primary goal is to, issue all the oil and gas permits in the state. We process various forms, completion reports, cancellations, renewals. My directional technician processes the directional surveys, and then obviously the seismic technician, he goes out and checks all the seismic projects, geophysical projects, coal, and oil and gas inspections.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for all that you guys do for the state. Speaking of all you do, let's jump into some questions and learn a little bit more about what each of your departments does. David, let's start with you. To get us started, what is the process for getting wells released from bond? That seems like a common question that we get.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something that operators are very interested in for obvious reasons. I'll start off with saying in the last 2 months, roughly, we created a policy or guidance that outlines 4 stages. Those are posted on our website. I provided a copy of that to the Petroleum Council as well, in case you were wondering about it. But the point of it is to provide a little more detail for the operators on what is required in reclamation. A lot of times you heard our reclamation staff and myself say you need to reclaim the site, but it doesn't really detail, what is expected out of that reclamation. So on a very high level, once the well's plugged, you have 1 year to reclaim that site. You're going to go out and remove all the equipment off that location. Going to do an environmental assessment to see if there is any contamination or anything that needs to be addressed. If so, you'll work with our reclamation specialist down in Bismarck and develop that plan and make sure that gets addressed. And once that's done, or if there is no contamination, the material on the location, scoria, similar stuff, will be stripped off. The site will be contoured back to as close to original condition as possible. And then they'll bring in topsoil and seed that. If it's out in a pasture, that'll be kind of your native seed, and if it's in a farm field, whoever's farming that will actually seed it into a crop. And typically, that process takes about a year. Unfortunately, the last several years when we've been in a drought, that's been very difficult to get that growth to come back. But once an operator gets to that point or that final stage, they can contact our reclamation team. They'll come out, they'll do a site assessment on it, and if they feel that that well is back to as close as possible to the native land around it, that well can be released from that bond. I will add to that we are in the process of hiring additional reclamation staff to hopefully assist with getting out there and reviewing these sites so that the operators have a quicker turnaround.
Thank you, David. Todd, over to you. North Dakota strives to issue permits in a timely and accurate manner. What is the average permit time, and what are the most common issues that impact that timing of permits being issued?
Thank you for that question. So typically 35 to 45 days, and that's largely dependent on several things. The operator's experience submitting the application, that can be one of the pitfalls, if you will. I mean, there's other things, various forms that could be missing, maybe drill back affidavits and things of that nature. There's a possibility that they could have maybe proposing inadequate surface casing. So that would be something that you're really looking at carefully. Make sure you're looking at our website and creating your own peer maps, and also bonds. So make sure that you're keeping your bonds in compliance as well.
All right, great. Thanks, Todd. Mark, over to you. Geologists have a vital role in the oil and gas industry. Kathy, that's both of us there, right? What's the role of the geology team under your leadership, and what do they do?
Well, I've often wondered that myself, but no, we have a.
Spoken like a true engineer, huh?
Yeah. I am an engineer, by the way. So Nathan and I get some good digs in back and forth.
Right.
But I have a team of 4 geologists and 2 technicians. They oversee the submission of geologic reports, well logs, core analyses. Once we get the logs in-house, they do a quick review, typically of the cement bond log, to see where the top of cements are, establish those tops of cements, and work with the operators if they have an inadequate top of cement. They also pick the log tops, and those are input into our system. They're very active in a couple of task forces we have. Well, we've combined it, but the deep set surface casing and Dakota overpressure task force. They work very closely with the rest of the team and the operators on those issues, trying to solve or manage, solve, mitigate, come up with a plan when things don't go well in drilling operations. They're active participants in our hearing process every month. They provide guidance and input and expertise on the decisions we have to make in those cases. They also run our carbon capture and utilization storage program. That's under their department. And they also are very active in the North Dakota Petroleum Council Teacher Education Seminar.
All right, David, over to you. How does the DMR and your team manage abandoned wells and work with operators on their asset retirement obligations?
Sure. So currently the regulations state that an operator can have no more than 6 wells that are out of compliance, and abandonment, of course, is not compliant with that. At that point, if an operator reaches that number, Todd's team actually can't issue any more permits against that bond. So it's a very important topic and something that the operators are actively trying to address to ensure that, A, they retire those assets when appropriate or bring those wells back online. We do audit or evaluate those bonds to determine whether or not they're starting to get close to that number, and we'll contact the operators and have communication with them. But majority of the operators in the state are very prudent with trying to get a hold of us and give us the plan as to what they have for funding or workover rigs and so on to get those wells either back online and producing or abandoned. And in those cases, you're free to reach out to myself, and we do set up meetings where you can come down to Bismarck, and we'll go through those and try to get as many of those wells hopefully back into production. But when they do need to be plugged out, then we'll work with our inspection team as far as the plugging procedures and address it.
All right, great. Todd, you probably get this question often. What are the rules and setbacks pertaining to occupied dwellings?
Yes, Nathan, I do get this quite often, at least twice a week. I'm getting this question. So the first thing I always tell people is you need to take a look at the rules to determine what is an occupied dwelling. So 43, our administrative code 43020301, number 34 actually says an occupied dwelling is defined as a residence which is lived in 6 months throughout the calendar year. So that is something really, before you even get started, you need to take that into account. And then once you take that into account and determine that it is an occupied dwelling, then of course you look at the Century Code 380805, which contemplates 1,320-foot distance from the well to the occupied dwelling, as well as no well can be permitted within 500 feet of an occupied dwelling unless authorized by the commission, and also indicates that a drilling permit is required. And then moving down in the rules, our permitting rule 4302.316 actually discusses the 1,000-foot, so the distance from the well to the occupied dwelling. If the production equipment is located further away from the occupied dwelling, the director may issue the permit without comment from the dwelling owner, but if the production equipment is closer to the occupied dwelling, then there's a notification process that has to occur, and one of those things is that you need to make sure that you provide the owner of the occupied dwelling, of course, the Century Code statement that they have 5 business days to comment to the Industrial Commission, local business address, and things of that nature. And then I guess the last thing is the safety regulation 43020328 actually states that no well or production equipment shall be closer than 500 feet to an occupied dwelling unless authorized by the owner of the occupied dwelling or by order of the commission.
Thanks, Todd. Mark, what's the area of review for a Class 2 well, and how does it relate to permitting UIC wells? But I think before you answer the question, just so that everyone understands, what is a Class 2 well?
So a Class 2 well is the saltwater disposal wells and enhanced oil recovery wells that we use in the industry. There are 6 classes that are defined by EPA. North Dakota has primacy of 2 of those classes. Well, I should say the Oil and Gas Division has primacy of 2 of those classes, the Class 2 and the Class 6, which are the carbon capture, utilization, and storage wells. North Dakota has primacy of the Class 2 program from the EPA. And the AOR in North Dakota, we chose, when states receive primacy, they could choose 2 methods. One was a standard fixed radius, or you could do an area of endangering influence. And North Dakota chose the 1/4 mile standard area review radius. And what that means in permitting is that we draw a 1/4 mile circle around that well, and we look at all the penetrations in that 1/4 mile. With the advent of directional and horizontal drilling, that circle can now become an ellipsoid, depending upon where it penetrates the disposal zone that is being contemplated. And the team looks at all the wells in that area review. They look at mainly looking at their construction. Some wells are active, some wells are plugged. We're looking for proper isolation across the injection zone. And in theory, we don't have it happen very often in North Dakota because typically our wells have been pretty widely spaced. It could require remedial work on that well if it is not properly isolated or plugged across that interval. We also implemented a policy in which then became a rule where the disposal operator has to notify any active permit or active well, the operator of that within the area review. That goes back to our overpressure situation we have in certain areas of the state to get the operators talking with each other to try to mitigate some of those concerns. I would like to note that the EPA retains primacy on the Fort Worth Indian Reservation. North Dakota offered and fought for that jurisdiction when we got primacy, but we ultimately were not given that primacy. But we have a gentleman's agreement with the EPA. When I was back as UIC supervisor and manager in the early days, there were 2 UIC wells on the reservation, and it just didn't make any sense for EPA to send somebody up from Denver to witness an MIT or inspect the wells. So we also retain jurisdiction on those wells because they are a well within the state boundaries, but we do inspect them regularly. We witness the MITs and otherwise work with the EPA in administering the program on the Fort Worth Indian Reservation.
Thanks, Mark. David, a topic that's been front of mind for many of us in the industry over the last couple of years is emergency management. I guess all the time, not just the last couple of years, but with the fires, it's been front of mind. How can industry coordinate with DMR for available equipment during emergency situations like wildfires and floods?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing, but it's part of life, I guess. And as Kathy indicated, the last year was really rough for everybody. But You know, it was around March timeframe, I believe, March, April. And last year, for those of you that aren't from up here, we didn't really have any snow, but obviously all the open water was frozen. We had a fire, and the military was trying to find open water for the helicopter to come in and scoop water on. That wasn't really something I don't think a lot of people thought of, the fact that in that time frame you don't have any open water. So they started reaching out to us, and we coordinated with the Petroleum Council through the industry to find any location that maybe had frack water or fresh water that was being utilized for fracking operations, that the helicopter could come in and scoop water out of that. Another main one that we do run across almost yearly is we monitor the river levels up in the Williston area, hard scramble fields, and we will coordinate with industry and let them know what those levels are and when they're approaching the flood stage to when that might cross into the field where their wells are at. And we'll request from them that they shut in appropriate wells and start communicating with us back and forth, as well as ensuring those tanks that are at a proper level so that they won't float. And that's something, again, that needs to be paid attention to or addressed. But in trying to be proactive to that, we request either through myself or through Brady at the Petroleum Council, who we work with very closely, to provide as we go into winter months where those open locations might be at, and as well as any industry staff that have pumpers that would be okay with helping out when need be, and there's a location. You know, we did that during the wildfires where, you know, there's a shortage of pumpers out there to be able to assist or get out there. So I'm trying to approach it from a standpoint of being proactive to what can happen and ensuring that we communicate back and forth and stage equipment in the appropriate places. So again, you can reach out to myself or the Petroleum Council so that we're aware where that's at, and we can provide that to the emergency management service teams that are out there fighting those.
Yeah, great, thank you. Todd, back to setbacks. Are there any distance requirements a pad should be from a section line or highway?
Yes, yes, there is. And these are both actually they're both written in our policies. And I guess the first thing I'll talk about is distance a pad should be from a section line. So it should be, so the Century Code actually contemplates, it's actually 240628, contemplates 33 feet on either side of the section line. So the pad, so neither the pad, including the cut and fill, should be either encroach or be overlapping the section line unless they have approval from the county or the township as appropriate. And then, so there's that, and then of course, there's a 200-foot distance from the edge of the pad to a state or federal highway, and that's actually been enforced since 2010, and that was at the suggestion of the DOT director at the time to allow for truck bypasses in these communities. And so the distance from the edge of the pad to the center of the state or federal highway is obviously 200 feet, but it's in flat areas, but in hilly or badlands type topography, it's actually like 400 feet to allow for back slopes.
That's great. Mark, I'll get to you here in just a little bit. David, back to you. North Dakota is participating in the formula grant. What is the formula grant, and how has this changed with the current administration? And is North Dakota moving forward with utilizing that?
The formula grant is a lot of work. That'd be sum it up. So the formula grant was a federal grant, provided that there was two phases to it. There's phase one and phase two. In phase one, which is what North Dakota and our department applied for, it's up to $25 million that can be utilized to plug, reclaim, or restore sites that are orphaned. So we applied through it with an estimated in our grant application, and everything that we did is posted on our website. We try to update that monthly, so you're free to go on there and follow along with what we're doing. We received approval for the full $25 million and a project start date of August 1 of 2024. After receiving that approval, the feds added on additional requirements for Endangered Species Act, historical preservation, and historical tribal consultation, which would require that you had to find any tribal groups that were in North Dakota at any point in time and try to get communication to them. And for obvious reasons, that could be a little challenging. So we were unwilling to try to meet all of those requirements because they would take a large amount of what we wanted the funding for to go do work and divert it into doing that work. So we requested from the new administration to review that and see if they wouldn't take or pull back those requirements, which they did with the new administration. So we are now in full force because we unfortunately lost that year, but we got 4 more years to get it done. So we're in full force with that. We're moving ahead very rapidly. We're anticipating around 46 wells that will plug, 116 sites that we'll reclaim, and almost 270 brine ponds that we're hoping to do restoration on. Obviously, there's more work than money, but we're, again, full force, and I'm hoping by spring that we'll be starting all those projects kind of simultaneously at one time.
That sounds like a great use of that funding. Todd, back to you as an operator. Am I able to just let a permit expire if I don't drill the well?
Short answer is no.
Why?
Please do not let it just expire. Do not let the permit expire. So our permitting rule actually indicates that a permit automatically expires 1 year after it's issued and that it can be renewed on an annual basis. Paraphrasing, but that's what it indicates. So you need to give some finality to it. You need to either cancel it or renew it. And so whether the permit has been expired for 1 day or 6 months, we need to know what the plan is. You need to stay on top of those, please. We'd really greatly appreciate that. And I think it makes it a little bit easier with North Star because you can sort by permits that are expired.
Good. All right, Mark, last question for you. Bring it home for us. Are there any other topics that we haven't covered that you'd like this crowd to hear, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to share one thing that's kind of been forefront recently, and it's establishing spacing units. Many in the room may recall back in 2010, we had one order that established roughly 1,500 drilling and spacing units, 1,280 acre drilling and spacing units throughout the area of the Bakken that had not been developed yet. I think that was very fortuitous at the time. And the goal behind that was we didn't want to strand 640 acre sections between two 1280s, so nobody would want to drill or develop those. And now with 3 and 4 mile horizontal wells, we're kind of back to square one. A lot of the area, especially the outer fringes, have not been heavily developed yet, and operators want to come in and establish 3 mile space units, 4 mile space units. And the commission has to play this giant game of Tetris to fit all these rectangles together. And it can be very challenging at times if you're coming from different directions at different times, and all of a sudden you get to the middle and say, oops, we have a stranded section here. And with 3 and 4 mile wells, it leads us to believe that maybe 2 mile wells aren't economic or not desirable at any rate. And so it becomes even more challenging. Operators look out for their own interests, which is we completely understand. But the commission, one of our charges is to protect the correlative rights. So we have to look out for the correlative rights of all working interest owners, all mineral owners, and trying to fit all this together can be very challenging. We encourage operators to, if you're working in an area, you have acreage in a certain area, to work with your other neighbor operators. And what's the plan to make all this fit together? Because that's what we have to look at. We can't look at just one operator's interest. We have to look at the development as a whole and make sure that nobody is getting left behind.
Thanks, Mark. Somebody mentioned earlier some of the easy work's done, and I think that most certainly speaks volumes to spacing units. Just the other day, we saw a spacing unit that came in of an operator, I believe, that's in the room that crossed. It's a great way to infill, develop the area, and I actually agreed with their idea wholeheartedly on how to do that, but it crossed multiple spacing units, and we really got to be mindful of how that impacts everybody. So thanks for the comments. Thank you guys for the incredible knowledge that you're able to share with the team here today. I learned a lot. I hope you all did as well. If this has sparked any questions, we'll be around today. Please come and visit with us. I have to leave later today. We're headed to IOGCC in Anchorage this weekend to represent the state of North Dakota. Hope you all have a great rest of your conference. Thank you. Thanks.